Well, first of all, any questions about what we've talked about so far? Anybody feeling overloaded? That's good. Oh, Ben is. Oh.
No.
Oh, questions, okay.
Actually, I just had a question of the degree to which we might practice mindful awareness in day-to-day life. Because I found personally that I kind of get a little bit burned out when it comes to the point to actually sit. It's sort of like, I've been attempting this all this, 24 hours a day, so it doesn't seem so. I fail to draw a distinct line between sitting practice and day-to-day life. So I just wonder your take on the degree to which we should attempt mindfulness sort of all the time versus sitting.
Okay, you're asking about the degree to which we should attempt mindfulness all the time. You should set as your goal to be mindful 24 hours a day. But before stating that question, you expressed something that sounded like a bit of a problem with that. If you've been trying to be mindful all day long, and then you sit down to meditate, how did you describe it?
Just being burned out or feeling like, being stretched thin, maybe, I guess.
Burned out, stretched thin. Okay, I think we should. I think we would need to look at how you're going about practicing mindfulness during the day, because it shouldn't feel like that. So maybe it would be better if you and I talked one-on-one about how you're practicing. The thing is that you develop the power of your mindful awareness and the habit of mindfulness when sitting, and then you have to bring that into your daily life. And usually the challenge is forgetting. It exactly parallels the process that you go through in learning to meditate. You say, I'm going to be mindful all the time, and then you forget to be. And then it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and this is the first time you thought about being mindful since 7 o'clock in the morning. And it goes through the same thing. You forget. You learn to remember more often, and so forth. But mindful awareness properly practiced, it is also like meditation in while you're being mindful, that should actually be enjoyable, satisfying. And the challenge is remembering to be mindful or being fully mindful, but that too isn't a matter of exerting an effort that is tiresome so much as it is just having the recollection and exercising the intention. So, and I think, my experience, I think the common experience is that as you begin to be more mindful more often throughout your daily life, you really enjoy it. You're disappointed when it's not there. You're really aware of it when you feel tired and your mind just isn't up to it, and it becomes kind of addictive. So let's talk about that, you and I, to see why you're finding it to be tiresome. But for everyone's benefit, all of these things that you're doing in meditation, they're just practice for real life, right? They're a very specialized circumstance in which to develop the abilities, practice the abilities. They're also a highly specialized environment in which to explore the nature of your mind. But what you really want to do is to be able to carry out that exploration in the noisy, busy world of daily interactions as well, and to enjoy the benefit of that. And when I say being mindful 24 hours a day, that is within the realm of possibility. You can know that you're in deep sleep when you're in deep sleep. There's nothing to remember about it, but you can know you're in deep sleep. And you can know that you're dreaming when you're dreaming, which is what is commonly called lucid dreaming, but I would say it's just being mindful when you're dreaming. So, and once you start enjoying the benefits of mindfulness, you want to have that kind of mindfulness. It's probably why you got into this in the first place. So thanks, Ben, for bringing that up. I believe Nathan had.
I forgot.
You forgot what it was. Okay, that's it. Anyone else have any questions? What we talked about? Yes.
Piggyback kind of on what you're saying then, to be mindful, it's not necessarily, you don't have to perceive you're mindful during the day. You can look back on it and be mindful of the day.
Yes. That's right. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. Ron. Yeah, Ron suggested that you can also be mindful reflectively or retrospectively. You can look back on your day and be mindful. As a matter of fact, that is a powerful tool for learning to be more mindful in your daily life. If once a day, and a really good time for that is at the same time that you meditate, maybe just before you meditate or just after, is to take a period just to reflect on your mindfulness in the last 24 hours. And I often suggest that in beginning to learn to be mindfully self-aware during daily activities, pick something that you would really, where you feel like it would really benefit you, that you really need to have more mindfulness. And an example would be that if you're prone to irritability and anger, that you make it your goal to start out just to give you sort of a target and a focus for your practice of mindfulness, is to try to be mindfully self-aware of what's going on in the present moment whenever you're in a circumstance where irritation and anger arise. And at first, of course, you'll always forget to do that. But this daily reflection helps you to do that, because once a day you reflect and you remember, well, oh yeah, and you acknowledge that you weren't mindful at the time. You see what you could have been mindful of, how you could have been mindful at that time, and it has kind of an imprint. And so doing that is then going to make it more likely that you'll remember to be mindful in the future. And in my experience, what happens is that you go from maybe not being mindful at all to only being mindful reflectively when you in this period of reflection, then to beginning to remember that you weren't mindful shortly after the event happened, to having the awareness that you intend to be mindful actually come up during the event, and so it progressively just becomes easier and easier to actually be mindful in the circumstances that you've chosen. But you can extend beyond that, and just if you reflect during the day when you were particularly mindful and feel good about it, the positive reinforcement is very important. So make sure that you always remember your successes, and give yourself a good pat on the back for those successes, because that makes them more likely in the future. But then also recollect those times when you weren't particularly mindful. And the reflection, it's important the form the reflection takes. It's not, I should, what happened to me. It's not that kind of thing. Rather, it's a little more objective and detached, almost like you're examining something that a behavior that was somebody else's rather than your own. So that you're able to just see how that particular thing unfolded and see the difference that mindfulness would have made, see the consequences that came out of it, see the unwholesome tendencies that were driving your reaction. Just be aware of them. Just bring them out in the open, have a look at them, acknowledge them, that, oh yeah, there was a desire there that made me react in this way, and I said that, and oh yeah, that's the way I felt afterwards, or that's the effect it had on somebody else. Just let that come into awareness. That's a kind of feedback that the part of your mind that generates these responses is conditioned to generate those responses due to past experiences, and it hasn't been getting the feedback that this isn't really serving you, that this isn't really working. So when you practice this kind of reflection, or if you practice in the moment mindfulness, either one, what you're doing is you're shining the light of conscious awareness on a kind of situation that's been going on for a long time, and you're allowing the parts of your mind that have been driving that to have a rare, clear look at the effect they're really producing and its desirability. Because the part of your mind that makes you react with irritation learned to do that and continues to do that because, according to its programming, this is good for you. And it'll keep on doing that until it gets the feedback, and so it becomes aware that, hey, this isn't good. And then it will change. So that's what we want to do with this mindful awareness, is illuminate the reality that's taking place with conscious awareness in such a way that those unconscious processes that have been driving it get the feedback as to what's really going on. Yes?
I remember my question, going back to the topic of dullness. You're saying if we train our minds enough, what is the experienced meditator's experience of running into dullness? Does he meet it he's able to meet it quickly enough that it doesn't permeate, or how does he relate to it?
Yes, as a meditator becomes more experienced with dullness, notices its onset quicker, and of course because of his experience is able to gauge an appropriate antidote to bring himself out of it. And depending on how experienced he is, if he's really put in the time working through training the mind not to sink into dullness, then usually that's all it takes. It's a bit of correction, and the problem, it's not going to come back again right away the way it does for a less experienced meditator. The exceptions to that, physical illness, lack of sleep, exhaustion due to things. Even the most skilled meditator, most skilled in dealing with dullness, can be in a physiological state where, it's going to be strong and it's going to be difficult to deal with. The other thing is that as you become more experienced in your meditation, you can also become aware of very subtle dullness after the fact. The more subtler forms of dullness can be sustained. And so you can sit for an hour in a state of subtle dullness and not realize it until you get up and realize that you have kind of a foggy brain. And if you get up from your meditation and have that experience, then two things. One, you know you're in dullness, and two, you might be willing to agree with the Tibetan and North Indian masters who teach that that sitting in sustained dullness is very bad for you. Okay, what I would like to do, if there's no further questions about what you've already done, let's talk a little bit more about the progressive development of the practice. Now, is everybody really clear on the second stage and the third stage and the difference between them from the reading and from the talking that we've done? Anybody that's not? Because what I'd like to talk about is the progression from the third stage to the fourth stage. Okay, good. The fourth stage, this is where you have uninterrupted continuity of awareness of your chosen object. That doesn't mean it's always in the center of your attention. Sometimes you are thinking some thought, but you haven't lost the awareness of the breath. You still, some part of your awareness is still tracking the beginning and the middle and the end of the in-breath and the pause in the beginning and the middle and the end of the out-breath, and you haven't lost awareness of it. Even though it's maybe happening over here in the periphery of your awareness, while you are really thinking a thought, some other thought. But to have it continuously in your awareness, to have that degree of stability, is extremely unusual in terms of the normal behavior of the human mind. So when you reach the fourth stage, you are definitely no longer a beginning meditator. You now have an ability to sustain attention stably in a way that is comparatively rare. And we would say at this point that you are truly a meditator on the path to becoming quite skilled. William James, who is considered to be the father of Western psychology, in a classic work that he wrote around the turn of the century, at a time in which he was, of course, unaware of the Eastern meditation traditions, made the statement that it was impossible for the human mind to entertain the same object for more than 15 or 20 seconds at a time. And he was a very intelligent, knowledgeable, and experienced person. And I think that you can see that he was reflecting what is the experience of somebody who hasn't achieved a certain degree of success in this kind of mental training. And you may yourself in your meditation practice be at a stage where it may seem to you that it's impossible to do that. Hopefully not. I mean, what I really hope is that you, if you haven't already, you very quickly discover that not 15 seconds, but 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes is not that difficult, and even at some point 45 minutes, an hour is not that difficult either. But when you do have that experience of uninterrupted or relatively uninterrupted continuity of attention, this is a very significant achievement, and this is what we call the fourth stage in this process. As to how you progress from the third stage to the fourth stage, in the third stage, your periods of awareness where you haven't lost the meditation object are becoming longer. And what's happening in that is sometimes the meditation object is actually at the center point, is actually the focus of your awareness, amidst all of the other thoughts and things that are happening. Other times something has displaced it, but it's still there. The process of remaining continuously aware is dependent upon realizing as soon as it's having this introspective awareness that allows you to recognize in time that you are losing this awareness of the meditation object, that the breath is no longer there. You start to think a thought, and the awareness of the breath is no longer there, but then you have that realization, and so you let go of the thought. You don't try to suppress it or stop it, although very often it just kind of disappears by itself. But what you do is reestablish awareness of the breath once again. What's happening in the third stage is that you are forgetting. Some other thought, sound, bodily pain, distraction comes along that occupies your attention for sufficiently thoroughly and for sufficiently long, and how long that is and how thorough that is varies a lot. But when it's occupied your attention sufficiently well, what's going to happen is you are going to forget the meditation object. But in this stage, you're going to realize that pretty quickly. And of course, then, with that realization is the tendency for the mind to spontaneously go back to the sensations of the breath is going to be, it's in the process of becoming more and more well established and happening automatically. But you have the opportunity not to just rush back to the meditation object, but examine the nature of the distraction that has succeeded in carrying you away. Now, some of you, maybe all of you, have already had some of that experience. It comes very quickly. Earlier I asked you what were the two, if we were to try to divide all of the different kinds of things that could be objects of conscious awareness into two categories, we recognized that we could divide them up into mental objects and sensations. Of those two categories, what is most likely to draw your attention away such that you forget what you're doing? Mental objects, right? As a matter of fact, in terms of the constant ongoing stuff in your mind, all of which has the potential to draw your attention away, what is most of it? It's mental objects, right? Not only that, has anyone looked closely at what happens when a sound or a sensation serves as a distraction, what the sequence of events is? I'll bet you have. Oh, yes.
Oh, well, it's like if you hear the screech outside and a crash, immediately you put the story together that, the sounds could have come from different angles, but, the cars crashed, and you get a narrative and an image.
Right. That's right. I suppose if somebody started out a jackhammer outside the window, it could draw our attention away on a purely sensorial level. But most of the time, there's a sensation followed by a mental object, and it's really, and that mental object may trigger a thought, and so forth. So once again, it's really the mental objects that have the power to draw us away and make us forget. So with that bit of awareness, when we realize that the distractions that we're most vulnerable to, that are most likely to cause us to forget what we're doing, are mental objects. So we can reflect for a moment and say, okay, what are the different kinds of mental objects that we're commonly experiencing? Thoughts. Now, what is a thought? How does it manifest? A voice in the head? No.
Just a awareness of some concept from the past that for whatever reason has captured your attention.
Okay, and what form? And that? How does that concept present itself?
Usually a situation, I would think. Like
An image? You have a mental image?
yeah.
Yeah. So very often your thoughts are mental images. Other times they are verbal narratives. There's a little voice that's analyzing, talking, chatting away. So a lot of the things that we call thoughts are either mental images. I mean, there are a lot of subtle forms of thinking as well. And I'm not trying to say that I'm encompassing the whole thing. But if we just look at the most common and obvious way that thoughts manifest, it's that inner talk and various images that arise. Memories, if you have a memory, it will often arise as some sort of image, or it could be a memory of a sensation, but it's very often a kind of image of yourself in that situation or something that you saw, and so forth. Planning can take the form of talking your way through the project, or sometimes it can take the form of an image or a set of images that unfolds, or sometimes you might have a sort of experience of the body doing something. You might notice that if the thought that arises is, oh, I'm supposed to call William at 2 o'clock, then the thought might take the form of you sort of having this mental experience of taking out your phone and, dialing the number and putting it to your ear. It takes different forms, but for convenience, you can think of them as being a form of image. So there's image and talk. So then there's one other kind of mental object that tends to be very strong that we would call emotions. Right? The feeling of restlessness, that's an emotion, or impatience. The feeling that you have, when's he going to ring the bell? That's an emotion. And it may be accompanied by thoughts, like, when's he going to ring the bell? But it starts out as a feeling, and it sort of fills you up. So it's a mental object, and that's a good example of a mental object that will take your attention away from the breath. Okay, so sense objects trigger mental objects, and mental objects of different kinds unfold, and that's what we're really vulnerable to. And so when you're in this process and you find that something has captured your attention to the extent that you have, even if only momentarily, forgotten what you were doing, it's worthwhile to just have a look, make a mental note of what that was, to become familiar with the kinds of things that are pulling your attention around. I liken this to if you found yourself, you've just been abducted, you've just been kidnapped, it's worth looking at your kidnapper in the face so the next time you can run the other way, right? And you can just see what kind of a thought was this, and almost instantly you'll recognize where it fits into your overall scheme of things in your life. Is it a thought that is rooted in what we would call desires of the sense realm, the world that we live in? Is it a thought that has to do with some way that we're going to make ourselves happy or avoid some suffering? I mean, a lot of our planning is that. Right? So you can recognize that many of the thoughts that you have are going to be of this type. And what will come from that is a recognition that, well, what my mind is vulnerable to, what is occupying my attention, not only in meditation, but probably most of the time, are all these thoughts that keep coming up about these different things that I'm going to do or problems I'm going to solve or so on and so forth so that I can be happy. Okay. The other thing that you will notice is that you will have thoughts that have to do with worry. A thought will come up and you'll say, oh, that's worry again. There will be thoughts that have to do with anger, ill will, animosity, impatience, your dissatisfaction with things, partners, family, co-workers, whatever it is. We have all kinds of things in the world that produce in us a sense of annoyance, dissatisfaction, basically aversion or ill will in some form or another. And so you can see that some of your thoughts are rooted in that. And that's a common, if you've had an argument with somebody, that's what's going to come up in your meditation, isn't it? You're going to keep having those thoughts of, well, I should have said, or how dare he, or things like that. So, this is another large and easily recognized category of thoughts, which has a root in emotion too. Desire and anger. Worry has a root in a kind of either remorse or regret, fear. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. What if the IRS checks with my whatever, that sort of thing. Then there's two other major categories of things that can come up as distractions, and one is thoughts of doubt. Should I be doing this? Is this the right thing to do? Maybe I'm not suited to this. Maybe this is the wrong method. I should be doing something else. So thoughts to do with doubt of various kinds, doubt of yourself. And then another kind of thought that you might have is one that is just you're experiencing a resistance to what you're doing. Maybe I should instead of meditating, maybe I should go and take care of this other more important thing. Resistance is a good name for it. So there are actually these major categories of thoughts you have that will appear either in a verbal form or some kind of imagery, the imagery of you doing something different or whatever it is. So you can readily, without doing a lot of analysis, just by paying attention, you can come to know what is going on in your mind. What kinds of things are trying to move in and take over your attention? What kinds of things are trying to usurp this calm and this peacefulness that you're enjoying? What kinds of things are demanding attention and occupying this place in your life? And with that recognition, you can automatically comes a kind of intention not to allow yourself to be vulnerable to that to the same degree. So if you pay attention to your abductor, then you automatically become more wary of your abductor in the future, taking away a lot of your abductor's ability to steal you away again. So applying a bit of awareness to what's happening in the process of distraction. Now, when you're having a lot of mind wandering, that doesn't really help. Because when you realize your mind has wandered, you're 3, 6, 10, 18 steps removed from what originally took you away. So don't bother with that. But when you're in that place of, you're pretty sure that what's right in front of you right now as you come into this present moment awareness is what took you away. Have a look at it. Just have that mindful awareness of this is what has taken me away. And that is going to have the effect over time that instead of discovering that you have been captured by this, you're going to see it coming, and you're going to let it come, let it be, let it go, while you don't lose your awareness of the meditation object. It may take the form that it comes, and where it's going to be is right in the center of your awareness, but you're not letting it, you're not allowing yourself to lose that. And so at some point you'll realize what's happened, and you can bring your focus back to the meditation object. This is really what all the practice in the fourth stage is about. So I said that we could conveniently designate everything else that comes up, sensations and mental objects, other than what your chosen meditation object is. We can designate them as distractions. Okay? And so now we can take distractions and conveniently divide them into subtle distractions, which have the which remain in the background or the periphery of the awareness, and allow us to keep the meditation object at the central focus. And we can see that sometimes a subtle distraction manages to displace the meditation object, and when that happens, we'll call it a gross distraction. It hasn't made us forget it yet, and so it's still a distraction, but it's now a gross distraction, and it's there occupying the central focus, and the meditation object is off to the side. So we're trying to move then from the third stage, where we keep forgetting the meditation object periodically, to the fourth stage, where we never lose it. And then in the fourth stage, we realize it still sometimes slips into the background, and now our task is just to bring it back into the foreground whenever that happens. So we've reached the stage of uninterrupted continuity of awareness, and now we're further refining the stability of our attention by being able to keep coming back to the meditation object, keeping it in the center of the awareness, while everything else stays where it belongs in the periphery. And this, of course, whether it happens for a short period of time in the third stage, or as the characteristic of your entire meditation in the fourth stage, it is that inner landscape of the mind that I talked about. And if I keep my eyes focused here, I can be aware of the rest of the room, and if anybody gets up and goes away, or a new person walks in, I still know it. Even I don't have to shift my eyes up to the door to see the new person has come in, or over to this side of the room to see that somebody gets up and walks out. Right? I can keep my eyes focused there, and my field of vision can take in a lot of information. As a matter of fact, it's a very good way of keeping track of what's going on, just letting it be. Whereas, if I looked up to the door, I'd lose if somebody got up on this side, I might not see what happened. So this is the place that you're trying to get to, is this centered, focused awareness, and where it becomes easier and easier to stay there. Questions about the methodology of this? What the goal is and the purpose? Yes?
Is this, oh my gosh, it's, I lost it now. Dependent rising?
Mm-hmm.
Is that where you're headed?
Not in the short term, no. But I'll tell you what you will become aware of. You will, in the description I've given you so far, we've already seen some of the process of dependent arising, and we can certainly add in the other parts. And for those of you that aren't familiar, dependent arising, what does that mean? It's a description of the way our experiences unfold. Well, amongst other things, it's a description of the way our experiences unfold. That when there is a sense object that interacts with our body and we become aware of it, those three things coming together, the sense object, the sense organ, and the consciousness that knows that sensory experience. Okay, so this is what we've been talking about. You're sitting there meditating and there is a sensation. And we talked about the fact that the sensation often triggers a perception, a mental object. You hear a sound and an image arises that corresponds to what you know by past experience to be the source of that sound. That would be an example. Or another possibility is that you have a sense experience and you don't really get involved in much conceptualization. You just enjoy the experience. You're sitting there and you get a very warm, comfortable feeling that just kind of spreads over your chest and your face, and it's pleasant. Okay. But you have a sensation and you're consciously aware of it. So this is an event in the unfolding of dependent origination. It's an initiating event. Whether there's an intervening perception or not, both the sensation and, if there is a perception, the perception will be accompanied by a quality, a subjective quality that this is pleasant or this is unpleasant or this is neutral. If it is something that's pleasant, there will arise within you a feeling of desire. And if it's unpleasant, there will arise in you a feeling of aversion. And whenever a feeling of desire and aversion arises, the mind reacts by creating this duality between the source of the pleasure or the pleasantness or unpleasantness and the experiencer of the pleasantness and unpleasantness, and creates a little story and scenario about what you can do about it, which is usually going to lead to some kind of action. And this is something that is happening all of the time. This is what makes up your life. You have one after another. An experience is pleasant or it's unpleasant. Craving arises in the form of desire and aversion, and your mind fits it into a story about yourself, and so you generate thoughts and words and actions in response to that. And of course that leads to a new experience, which leads to, and it just keeps going and going and going, and that's dependent origination. You can see that as soon as you start to meditate, as soon as you start to notice that sensations and perceptions are accompanied by feelings of pleasantness and unpleasantness, which produce reactions of desire and aversion. When you feel an ache in your knee, what is your reaction to that? The immediate reaction is, oh, I want that to stop. And what you're dealing with as a meditator is that first comes a feeling and then comes the thought about what I can do about it. And of course then comes that other thought that, oh, the instruction is that you're not supposed to move. And so then you have this little dance going back and forth between the part of you that wants to move and make the pain go away, and the part of you that wants to do the practice and stay still. And you may get 3 or 4 other voices chime in until you've got a regular chorus going. But you can see the process taking place. And if it's a strong pain, it will lead to the formulation of a plan of action, and you'll move, and then you'll have a whole new sensation. So you can see dependent origination taking place as soon as you start to meditate. If you know what you're looking for, you might not. Good chance you wouldn't discover it on your own. Good chance you wouldn't. You'd notice the pieces there, but you wouldn't necessarily connect them up. But it's really nice to have the structure of how these links work, so that you can recognize it and have that aha experience. Oh, that's what the Dharma teachers were talking about. So it is there. It's there, right? I wasn't leading to it, but it's always there. You can always find it. And as you go along, it only becomes even more noticeable. Okay. I want us to do some more sitting. I also want to introduce another meditation practice to you. So what I think I'm going to do right now, let's see, we've got 2 more hours left. All right. I'm going to give you some instruction in a second meditation practice, walking meditation. Okay? And then we're going to have a break. And then following that break, we'll come back and we'll do a period of sitting, and then we'll do a period of walking. Or maybe we should do it the other way around while the walking meditation instruction is fresh in your mind. We'll do it the other way around. Okay, we'll have a break. And then we'll do a period of formal walking meditation. And then we'll follow that by coming back and doing a sitting meditation. Okay? That'll give us some time afterwards for a little more discussion and some question and answer. Okay, so first, the instruction in walking meditation. Now, we won't lose sight of the basic theme here, is to be fully present in the present moment, relaxed and aware, awake, not drawn off into the fantasy land of a past that no longer exists, or a future that may never happen, or a make-believe someplace else, okay? We're going to stay entirely in the present. This meditation is, in some ways, easier and more fun, although I will acknowledge that some people don't like it as well as a sitting meditation, at least until they get used to it. It is a lot easier on the body because you don't have the same discomfort that you do with sitting completely still for a long period of time. And it's wonderful if you're doing a lot of sitting to alternate a period of sitting with a period of walking meditation, because it helps to get the energy flowing, the blood flowing. It helps to keep you awake and alert. And it is in every sense just as powerful a meditation as sitting. But it is a little bit different. Because you're walking, you're moving, your eyes are open, there's a lot more sensory input present. So that's one difference. And so it makes it particularly well suited to really cultivating mindful awareness, because there's already a high level of alertness and stimulation of your mind. But you still continue the practice of directing and sustaining your attention. So this is how you go about doing walking meditation. First of all, as much as possible, you remain fully present. If thoughts are taking place and there are thoughts about the present, that's fine. You just go ahead and let those thoughts happen. But you don't let thoughts that are if there's a thought that has to do with something outside of the present, you don't let it carry you away. You stay in the present. So you find that you keep thinking about what's for supper tonight. You just come back to being here, feeling your body, feeling the air, knowing that that thought is there. That is in the present. Being aware that you're having a thought about the future is being in the present. Forgetting the present because you're in the thought of the future, that's when we find that's taken place, when we've woken up to the present, because that's the only time we can be aware that we're lost in the future, is when we've come back to the present, then stay in the present. Okay? So that's number one. Now, the same way you use the sensations of the breath to help anchor you in the present, when you're walking, use the sensations in your feet. So that as you're walking, be aware of the sensations in the foot that you're moving. And then direct your attention to the other foot, sustain the attention on the sensations there until that step is completed. And it's just, to begin with, this is just the anchor that if you find that your attention is starting to go too far afield, then use the sensations of walking. Actually, it's a good idea to try to keep that awareness present, the awareness of the sensations in your feet present all of the time. Even though it may not be the primary focus of your attention, it's your anchor. Whenever you're no longer aware of the sensations in your feet, then there's a good chance that you've lost present moment awareness, and you know to come back. Okay? Now, for the future, when you developed a little skill of just being in the present moment and using the sensations of your feet to anchor you there, we can make this practice a little more formal, a little more refined. So you can focus the attention more completely on the sensations in the soles of your feet and try to make one complete step at a time and have the awareness in one foot at a time. So you're aware of that step, and what normally when we take a step, the back foot starts to rise before the forefoot has been completely placed. So try to consciously make only one step without moving this foot. Then intentionally direct your attention to the sensations in the sole of this foot, and then observe the changing pattern of sensations associated with moving that foot and shifting your weight onto it. And then when that step's complete, direct your attention here. So you're directing and sustaining the attention while you walk. At the same time, you're hearing things and you're seeing things, but you're directing and sustaining the attention. You're doing the same practice you were sitting. This is good because now you're learning to stay focused while you're doing other things in the world and having other experiences at the same time. I'll just tell you where this can go. It can become a very focused practice. Instead of step by step, you can divide each step into 3 parts: lifting, moving, placing. And you can come to know clearly and consistently what the sensations are in each of those 3 phases. You can even go beyond that. That's called 3-part stepping. There's 9-part stepping, where the process of lifting your foot, you divide that into 3 parts. So that there's a beginning and a middle and an ending stage of the lifting, and then for the moving, there's a raising and a moving and a lowering, and then for the placing, there's a beginning part, and a middle part, and an end part. So you can get really focused and really detailed in your walking meditation. So that's one direction that you can go with it. I mean, for the time being, you stick with the simpler practices that I just described until you develop some facility and comfort with this. But you can turn it into a very intensely focused and highly mindfully aware practice going in that direction. There's another direction that you can go in with this, which is a broader kind of awareness. To begin with, in doing this, it's often good to experiment with walking at different paces and just noticing qualitatively how different it is. When you walk very slowly, how unnatural it is and how much deliberate, concerted attention it takes to maintain your balance and things like that. And then you go a little bit faster and how wonderfully easy it becomes. It's automatic. When I'm doing this, I can't let my attention wander too far, because if I do, I'm going to lose my balance. So I've really got to stay on top of it every moment. But if I speed up a little bit, I can totally forget I'm even walking. Okay? So there's a very interesting experience of walking itself that you can explore. As you're walking, there are so many things happening, and you can discover all of these things. You can start out in the beginning by just taking note of the strongest elements of your environment that present themselves. So you're doing some walking meditation and something catches your eye. Just stop and go fully into visual awareness. Allow yourself to examine what caught your awareness. And when you have that sense that you've satisfied the urge to explore that object, then you let it go. You might take a moment before resuming your walking to just say, well, what else is there in my visual field? And just, not necessarily looking around, although you could do that, but just allowing yourself to fully be present with visual experience, that this is seeing. This is seeing. And then go back to the walking. The same thing, you hear a sound, and stop and put your attention totally into the hearing. Noticing, if it's a brief sound, noticing its reverberation in the mind. And then notice whatever thoughts, other sounds are there. And then go back to practicing sensations on your skin, things like that. When you get a little bit of this kind of experience of being able to easily and fully embrace sensory experience with fully conscious awareness, you're developing a bit of flexibility. Okay, you can move and flow here. Then what you can do is just see how much, and this is a fun one to do, and you can look forward to this, but you'll have to practice a bit before you really get the effect of it, is you say, okay, how much of this present moment can I actually take in of all the sensations in my body? Because in this step are not just the sensations of my soul, the soles of my foot, but the changing sensations of tension in the different muscles and tendons of my legs. The sensations produced in the movement and as my clothing moves against my skin. There's so much just in the bodily sensation. At the same time, visually, as I step, my eyes move, and the contents of my visual field are so rich. And there's so much, if you're outside walking, there's so much sound. And then there's the feeling of the air on your skin. And then you might smell a flower or a tree or the exhaust of a diesel truck or something like that. And then there's your mind's reaction to all of this. That's a really important part of the present moment. How does your mind react to the smell of a diesel truck compared to the smell of a rose? Or the feel of warm sunshine on your skin, or different things like that. So it can turn into a process of not just being in the present moment, but investigating and discovering the richness and depth of the present moment. And really, really well worth thinking. But to start off with, let's just start off simply. Just try to be here now in the sense of not being in some place, some other time or place, okay? So just be here now. Use the sensations in the soles of your foot as your anchor to bring you back into the present, and slowly, gradually see how much awareness you can bring into that, the act of walking. Any questions about this practice?
Do you think barefoot will help if you?
It's wonderful to do walking barefoot, but you don't need to. But yes, you have a lot more sensitivity in your feet. I would suggest that initially, at least you don't worry about that. You instead pick a nice, comfortable environment to walk in. If you're walking inside, like if you walk in here, then walk barefoot and you'll get all the benefits of that. But if you're walking outside, wear shoes, and you'll get different kinds of benefits. If you're walking outside, there'll be a lot more to experience in terms of the environment. But certainly as you go along, experiment with the difference between walking with shoes on and walking without. Okay. Questions about walking like this? Everybody knows how to do it? You're looking forward to trying it? It's a little bit different, but it's really all the same too. It's applying the same principles, but in a different kind of activity.